A family torn by greed, betrayal, and loss struggles to survive. One boy vows justice, one girl lost to tragedy, and a mother clings to hope. Will revenge restore their lives, or will the past's shadows crush them forever? Sit back and find out as we dive into this powerful emotional story.
You're about to hear a story that carries the heart of Africa. Subscribe to African Folktales by MaC-Anison TV, where every week we share rarest African folktales you won't find anywhere else. Your subscription is the fuel that inspires us to bring you the very best of our storytelling heritage. When the shadows of night fall upon men, that is when the hidden deeds seek a cover. But the ancestors say, nothing is hidden under the sun. The earth has eyes, and the sky has ears. The air inside the abandoned building was thick with silence, broken only by hurried whispers. The cracked walls carried secrets, and the half-built pillars stood like silent witnesses. "Mike! John, come out now, eh? You've been there since," a trembling voice called out, heavy with impatience. But inside, fear and desperation danced in hushed tones. John, wiping sweat from his forehead, muttered, "Mike, calm down now, calm down. I'm almost done, okay? Just a little more time." Mike's heart raced, his ears sharper than the night itself. He froze, his face pale. "John, listen. I think somebody's coming." John's jaw tightened, trying to swallow the rising fear. "No, nobody's coming." "Nobody. Hold on. I'm almost done." But when a man says nobody is watching, the spirits laugh, for destiny always sends eyes to the place of sin. The heavy crunch of boots on gravel shattered the night. Footsteps, sharp, unmistakable. The iron voice of authority soon followed. "Hey, what's happening here? What are you people doing?" Flashlights sliced through the darkness. Police officers stood in the doorway, their faces carved with anger and disgust. They had caught them red-handed, two young men with a frightened 14-year-old girl in a half-completed building. The officer's voice thundered, "Officers, arrest them! When we get to the station, you will explain yourselves. Remember, whatever you say or do here will be used against you. I advise you to keep silent until then. Take them. Let's go," Mike stammered, his lips trembling. We can actually explain. She is our friend." The officer's eyes burned with fury. "Your friend? So this is what you do with your friend in an abandoned building at night?" Silence fell heavy, like a stone in a river. The girl's eyes were wet with unshed tears. The shame of the moment wrapped itself around the culprits like chains. The officer turned sharply to John. "Young man, what is your name?" John's voice cracked under the weight of fear. "My name is John, sir." The officer leaned closer, his voice dropping like thunder before rain. "John, both of you had better start talking. The truth may be bitter, but a bitter truth is better than a sweet lie. I need explanations. Now." And so, under the gaze of justice, their tongues trembled. For the ancestors say, when a man sows evil, the harvest waits for him at the crossroads. The elders say, when the drum of shame beats in secret, the ancestors will surely send a witness to dance to it in public. Evil may wear a cloak of darkness, but truth walks in daylight like the sun, exposing everything. His eyes narrowed, his tone heavy with fury and disbelief. Police officer, thundering. "What were you people doing in a non-completed building with that girl at this time of the day?" The question hung like a hammer waiting to strike. John's lips quivered, his voice a whisper, desperate for escape. John, stammering, She is our friend. We were just practicing, doing choir rehearsal." The officer's head jerked back, his eyes burning as though fire had touched them. His disbelief echoed in his laughter, sharp, bitter, cutting. Police officer, furious. "Choir rehearsal? In an uncompleted building?
with your pants down? And you dare tell me you were doing choir rehearsal? A lie, no matter how polished, carries the smell of rot. And in that moment, their lie carried the stench of disgrace. The officer's piercing gaze shifted from the young men to the trembling girl standing by their side. His voice softened slightly, though the edge of interrogation remained. Police officer. Young lady, what is your name? Her voice was small, breaking under the weight of fear. Christabel. My name is Christabel, sir. The officer leaned forward, his voice a whip in the stillness. Police officer. Christabel, how old are you? Christabel, with tears in her eyes. I'm 14, sir. The officer's chest rose heavily. His eyes, usually hardened by years of duty, now flashed with both anger and sorrow. Police officer, raising his voice. So tell me, what were you doing with these two men who are old enough to be your father? At this broad daylight, aren't you supposed to be in school? School, young lady. So what were you doing here? The truth struck the air like lightning. A child, caught between poverty and corruption, and men who had chosen shadows over the light of responsibility. The officer turned sharply, his fury directed at Mike. His voice thundered like a drum at war. Police officer, I am highly disappointed in both of you. You are supposed to be teaching this girl what is right. You are old enough to be her father. She should be in school, and you should be at your office or learning a trade, building your lives. Instead, you hide here, wasting your future and corrupting innocence. Mike's shoulders slumped, shame etched into every line of his face. John's lips trembled, but no words dared to escape. Police officer, furious. What kind of message are you passing to society? What lessons are you teaching other youngsters who look up to you? This kind of life you're living will take you nowhere. Don't you know your future is bright? Don't you know you are the leaders of tomorrow? The ancestors say, when the youth dances naked in the marketplace, it is not only his shame, but also the disgrace of the elders who failed to guide him. The officer's tone shifted, carrying the weight of both anger and fatherly disappointment. Police officer. If this were your sister, tell me, what advice would you give to her? If you cannot even advise yourselves to do right, how then can you protect another life? The silence was suffocating. Christabel's small voice trembled as the officer turned to her again, his tone heavy but gentler now. Police officer. Young lady, where are your parents? Christabel, lowering her head. Sir, my dad is late. The officer's eyes softened for a fleeting moment. Police officer. You mean, your dad is dead? Christabel, voice breaking. Yes, sir. Police officer. And your mom? Where is your mom? Her voice fragile as glass. Christabel. My mom and my brother. We live on the streets, sir. The officer's eyes widened, his chest heaving. Police officer, in disbelief. You live on the streets? You mean, you are homeless? Christabel, whispering through tears. Yes, sir. And in that moment, silence swallowed the building. For the elders say, poverty may bend a child's back, but it is the negligence of society that breaks the spirit. Justice stood face to face with innocence and guilt, and the air grew heavier, waiting for the verdict of truth. The elders say, a river that forgets its source will one day run dry. But what of the child who has no source to begin with, only tears and the streets as her inheritance? When destiny deals a bitter hand, survival becomes the only song left to sing. Christabel's voice cracked under the weight of her tears as she pleaded with the police officer, her hands trembling, her eyes burning with desperation. Christabel, pleading, Please, sir, please allow me to go. There's nobody to take care of my younger brother and my mum. They need me. The officer, his face hardened from years of duty, stood in silence. He saw not just a girl, but a broken child carrying the load of an entire family. His anger gave way to sorrow, and after a heavy sigh, he nodded slowly. Police officer, softly, almost fatherly. Go, Christabel. But hear me. Live a good life henceforth. Don't let this darkness swallow you. And so she was released, her fragile figure disappearing into the busy streets of Lagos, her heart pounding with fear and shame. Yet even in freedom, her chains remained. Chains woven by poverty, by loss, by survival. Christabel walked briskly under the fiery Lagos sun, the heat pressing down like judgment itself. Her bare feet touched the burning concrete as she made her way back to the only place she called home, under the bridge, where shadows and suffering slept side by side. Her mother, Mrs. Grace, lay on a thin mat spread over the hard earth. Paralyzed from the accident that had stolen her husband and her own strength, she waited anxiously, her eyes fixed on the path. Her younger son, hungry and restless, cried softly, his tiny stomach rumbling with emptiness. As Christabel approached, her mother's voice broke through the air, weak yet sharp with worry. Mrs. Grace, voice trembling. "Christabel, what kept you so long? Where have you been? I've been searching for you in my heart, and you know I cannot leave this place. Look at your brother. He has been crying since. He's hungry. What happened, my child?" The truth stood heavy on Christabel's lips, but her heart refused to break her mother's spirit further. For how could she confess that her innocence had been traded in the marketplace of survival? How could she tell her paralyzed mother that the price of bread was her body, her childhood, her dignity? So she lied. She forced a smile, swallowed the tears burning in her throat, and told her mother a gentler story. Christabel, softly. "Mama, I was only delayed, but don't worry, we'll find something to eat soon." And thus began the secret life of Christabel, a child of 14, carrying burdens older than time. Life drove her down a path she never dreamed of, a path paved with shame, choices, and despair. She became a wanderer of survival. Sometimes she stole, her trembling fingers slipping bread into her pocket while the shopkeeper's back was turned. Sometimes she pickpocketed, her heart pounding like a war drum as she snatched coins from careless hands. Other times, darker times, she followed men, some her age, some old enough to be her father, into dim corners, exchanging her innocence for a few naira to silence her brother's hunger, to soothe her mother's tears. The elders say, when hunger enters the house, shame is thrown out of the window. Christabel did not choose this life. This life chose her. Rain fell on them, soaking their frail bodies under the bridge. The sun scorched them, burning their skin without mercy. Not that they did not have a home, but because life had robbed them of their inheritance, dignity, shelter, and peace. At night, Christabel often stared at the stars through the cracks of the bridge, her soul whispering prayers the wind carried away. She longed for a life different from the one fate had carved for her. But the street is a merciless teacher. It teaches you to steal when you want to eat. It teaches you to smile when you want to cry. It teaches you to grow old when you are still a child. And so, Christabel's journey deepened. A girl trapped between innocence and survival, forced to live a wayward life not by choice, but by the harsh hands of circumstance. The elders say, when family turns to strangers, the orphan's tears become food for the earth. Blood may be thicker than water, but greed can dry even the thickest blood. Christabel's uncle sat on the veranda of his compound, his face hardened like carved stone, the keys to her father's wealth jingling in his pockets. This was the same man who had carried Christabel as a baby, the same man who once promised his late brother, "Don't worry, I will take care of them if anything happens." But promises dissolve when greed takes root. Sometimes Christabel, Her crippled mother and little brother would drag their tired bodies to his iron gate. They would sleep outside, shivering under the cold night air, waiting for him to show mercy. Christabel, pleading, her voice weak. "Uncle, please, we are family. Families stick together. Just give us what belongs to us. My father's sweat. It is not yours alone." But every time the gate would creak open, and like a storm, he would chase them away, his voice spitting venom. Uncle, shouting, "Get out! Go back to the gutter you came from. Nothing here belongs to you. This is my house, my property." But the ancestors say, a greedy man eats alone today, but tomorrow even his shadow will deny him. The cruelty cut deeper than hunger. Nights stretched into dawns, and dawns into years of endless suffering. They begged strangers for alms, stretched out trembling hands for coins, and scavenged scraps of food from the ground just to silence the cries of an empty stomach. And through it all, Christabel, barely a child, became both mother and father to her little family. She pickpocketed in crowded markets, stole from inattentive traders, and sold her body in the dark corners of the city to strangers who only saw her desperation, not her pain. Life was not fair. Life was a whip, but she endured, because when the goat is tied at one end, it will eat whatever grass it can reach. Time marched forward with heavy footsteps. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. Christabel grew, her innocence washed away by the rain of hardship. By the time she turned 18, she was no longer the little girl under the bridge. She was a woman trapped in the cruel theater of survival. Her eyes, once filled with childish wonder, now carried shadows too heavy for her age. But her mother's paralysis and her brother's hunger chained her to the streets. She had no choice. Her life was a prison with no doors, and each passing day wrote new scars upon her soul. Then one fateful afternoon, the script of her life shifted. A man in his late 40s, well-dressed, smooth-talking, with a voice that dripped with false kindness, appeared. His car, polished and powerful, glistened under the Lagos sun. His smile promised escape. His words offered hope. Man, charming, persuasive. "Christabel, you shouldn't be living like this. You're too young to suffer this much. Let me help you. I can take your mother off the streets. I can give your brother a better life. Trust me." Hope is the sweetest poison, for when a drowning soul sees a hand stretched out, it does not ask whether that hand is to save or to drag it deeper into the ocean. Christabel looked at him, her heart torn between fear and longing. Could this be the miracle they had been praying for? Or just another trap dressed in fine clothes? She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the distant figure of her mother under the bridge, then back to the man's outstretched hand. And so began a new chapter. One wrapped in promises, coated with lies and heavy with suspense. For when light appears in the darkness, one must ask, is it the dawn or the fire of destruction? When the vulture dances on the rooftop at midday, the elders say something unseen is about to die. Not every hand that offers you bread is free of poison, and not every smile hides kindness. The night was quiet, the moon hanging like a silent witness in the sky. Christabel's heart beat with fragile hope, her face lit with the kind of smile only the desperate wear when they believe dawn has finally broken after endless nights of sorrow. She thought God had finally answered her prayers. To her, this wealthy man was a savior. His house rose like a palace, gates tall and gold-plated, lights glittering as though the stars themselves had bowed to his command. Marble floors stretched endlessly, perfumes scented the air, and silence wrapped the walls in mystery. Christabel, softly, in awe. So, this is his home.
Maybe our suffering has ended. Maybe Mama will walk again. Maybe my brother will smile like other children. Her eyes gleamed with hope, her palms trembling as she whispered a silent prayer. But hope, like fireflies, shines brightest before it fades. The man, dressed in silk, smiled a smile that never touched his eyes. His laughter echoed in the hollow chambers of that mansion like a drumbeat of doom. Man, smooth, coaxing. Christabel, you are safe here. Sit, relax. All your worries, they will soon be over. She ate, she drank, and when the clock chimed, she rose suddenly. Christabel hurried, anxious. Sir, I must go now. My mother, she cannot stay alone. My little brother needs me. Please let me go. Her voice shook with urgency, her hands tightening around her tattered bag. But then, it happened. The man's face darkened like a cloud swallowing the sun. His eyes narrowed, gleaming with something otherworldly. He stepped forward, barring her way. Man, stern, whispering like thunder. You are not leaving, Christabel. Her breath caught in her throat. Her heart pounded like a talking drum. Fear swept through her body as he raised his hands and began to chant words older than time. He called upon shadows. He called upon the gods of the underworld. Words of death slithered from his tongue like venomous snakes. Christabel staggered back, her lips parting in terror. Christabel, screaming, desperate. What are you doing? Stop. In the name of God, stop. But her cries were swallowed by the thickening air. The room grew cold, the candles flickered violently, and the walls seemed to close in. With every word he uttered, her strength ebbed away. Her knees buckled. The ground rose to meet her. Her eyes widened in shock as the truth dawned. Christabel did not know she had walked into the lair of a ritualist. His wealth was not built on sweat, but on blood. His kindness was not love, but bait. The final chant burst from his lips, and her body collapsed lifelessly to the marble floor. Her last tear slid down her cheek, shimmering like a broken dream. The man stood over her, victorious, his shadow stretching long across the room. And so ended the life of Christabel. Young, broken, betrayed by hope itself. What a painful end. Indeed, the elders say, a child who says his mother will not sleep must also keep his own eyes open. Greed, evil, and betrayal. They never go unpunished. The sound of a distant drumbeat echoes, warning of a storm yet to come. When the hawk snatches a chick from the mother hen, the farmyard wails. But the elders remind us, no matter how long the night, the day must break. A body had been found by the roadside, lifeless, cold, a flower cut down in its bloom. People gathered, their faces painted with grief, their voices breaking into wails. Dust rose as bare feet shuffled toward the scene, and when the cloth was pulled back, sorrow pierced every heart. It was Christabel. Women screamed. Men shook their heads in disbelief. Children cried without understanding, only echoing the pain of their elders. A young man, trembling, ran to Christabel's mother. Young man, urgently. Mama Grace, please come with me. There's something you must see. Her little son, Samson, followed closely, eyes wide with fear. When they reached the roadside, silence fell. And there, lying lifeless in the mud, was her daughter, her Christabel. Mrs. Grace, screaming, broken. Christabel! Christabel, you can't do this to me. Who will take care of your brother? You know I am not sound. Why, my child? Why? Christabel, please come back. Come back to me. They say, tears cannot wake the dead, just as rain cannot grow stones. But still, Mrs. Grace wept for days. Memories stabbed her like knives. The death of her husband, her paralyzed body,
her brother-in-law stealing their inheritance, and now the death of her only daughter. Fate had dealt her a merciless hand. The days crawled in agony. Then, one evening, the sky darkened and rain fell like the heavens themselves were mourning. Mrs. Grace sat drenched in the storm, unable to move, clutching Samson to her chest. Lightning split the clouds, thunder rolled like angry drums, and yet she sat, helpless, broken, waiting for an end. But destiny was not yet finished with her story. Through the silver curtains of rain, a sleek black car rolled slowly down the muddy path. Inside sat a wealthy woman, her eyes sharp yet tender. She saw the crippled figure in the rain, and her heart stirred. Wealthy woman, to her driver. Stop the car. That woman. Why does she sit there, soaked like a forgotten soul? Go. Take the umbrella. Bring her here. The driver hurried out, shielding himself against the rain, and reached them. He bent, lifted Mrs. Grace carefully, and for the first time he understood. She was crippled. That was why she could not move. This woman was no ordinary stranger. She was a doctor, a healer, and fate had woven her into their path. At her mansion, she cared for Mrs. Grace like a sister. She treated her, gave her medicine, and restored her strength. Slowly, Mrs. Grace began to walk again. Her paralyzed frame, once chained to sorrow, found new life. She enrolled Samson in school, and Samson, though scarred by tragedy, burned with determination. Books became his friends, wisdom his weapon. In time, his brilliance shone beyond the borders of his country. At an international competition, young Samson, with bright eyes and unshakable courage, won a scholarship to study law abroad. The boy who once cried in the rain beside his broken mother was now destined to fight for justice in a world that had once denied him everything. The elders say, the child who is not embraced by the village will one day return to set the village ablaze. Samson's story had just begun. The screen fades, rain still falling softly, but now it no longer sounds like grief. It sounds like rebirth. They say the child who watches his mother suffer never forgets. 25 seasons may pass, the rivers may change their course, but the heart remembers. The elders remind us, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. The courtroom lights had long dimmed on Samson's victories. In America, he had become a name that echoed across law schools and courtrooms. A man of truth, a man of justice, a man feared by corrupt lawyers and adored by the oppressed. He never bent his knee to bribes. He never compromised. His judgments were sharp as lightning, his arguments heavy as thunder. Yet beneath the polished suits and eloquent speeches, there was a fire that never went out, a memory of hunger, of rain falling on a crippled mother, of a sister buried too soon, and of an uncle's greed. So Samson returned to Nigeria, not as a boy who once cried in the rain, but as a lion, sharpened by pain, clothed in wisdom, and carrying vengeance in his chest. The moment he stepped into his mother's home, Mrs. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Age had folded her face, but her smile still carried the strength of 1,000 suns. She embraced him, her hands trembling as though she feared he might vanish if she let go. Mrs. Grace, voice trembling with joy. "My son, my Samson, you came back to me." They spoke long into the night. Memories poured like wine, laughter mixing with tears. But when Samson's voice hardened and he revealed his mission, silence fell like a blade. Samson, firm, unshakable. "Mother, I did not come back to flaunt wealth or titles. I came for justice. Every dime, every penny, every acre of land that Uncle stole from us, I will take it back. I will render him homeless as he rendered us homeless." Mrs. Grace's smile faded. Her eyes, weary yet wise, searched her son's soul.
Mrs. Grace, pleading, calm. My child, let it go. Life has already smiled on us. We lost much, but see, God kept us alive. You are my pride, my testimony. Must we reopen wounds that time has tried to heal? Remember, my son, even if the rain falls, the sun will surely shine again. For the elders say, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. And Mrs. Grace feared the grass this time would be her son. But Samson's face hardened like carved stone. His voice carried the weight of thunder. Samson, resolute, eyes blazing. Mother, no! God did not raise me, protect me, and make me successful just to watch injustice triumph. The wicked must not go unpunished. Uncle's greed destroyed us, and if I remain silent, I become part of his sin. Justice delayed is justice denied. I must bring him to book. Mrs. Grace clutched his hand, her tears falling freely. Her heart begged for peace, but her son's fire burned too fiercely. And so, after much pleading, Samson remained adamant. His mind was made. His heart was fixed. The courtroom of destiny awaited, and Samson was ready to tear open the pages of the past. But vengeance is a double-edged sword. The hand that wields it may yet bleed. The question is, will Samson's pursuit of justice heal his family's wounds, or open new scars that may never close? They say in Africa, when a man buries the truth, the earth will one day vomit it. And on this night, under the trembling silence of a flickering lamp, buried secrets clawed their way to the surface. What the rain hides, the sun will reveal. What a man sows, the wind shall scatter back to his doorstep. The air was heavy, as if the ancestors themselves leaned close to witness. A mother pleaded for peace, a son burned with vengeance, and an uncle stood on the edge of judgment. Mrs. Grace, frail but unbroken, her hands trembling as she clutched her rosary. Tears shimmered in her eyes, yet her voice carried the quiet strength of a mother who has known storms. Mrs. Grace, pleading, my son, let it go. Leave it for God to judge. Let karma take hold of your uncle. Do not stain your hands. But Samson's eyes, red with fire, moist with grief, burned like coals long buried under ashes. He rose, his chest heaving, every word heavy with decades of swallowed pain. Samson, thundering, almost breaking. Mama, I can't. I will not let this go. How do I allow my uncle to breathe freely after the wickedness he poured on us? No, Mama. I am his karma. He must reap what he sowed. Christabel died because of him. We slept under bridges because of him. If only my sister Christabel were alive today. Her name hung in the air like a haunting melody. Christabel, the sister who had carried her pain with silent dignity until death claimed her. Samson, voice cracking but fierce. She never lived that life by choice. Life forced her hand. Hardship strangled her. And why? Because our uncle stole what rightfully belonged to us. Mama, you want me to leave him? No. Tonight he pays. His judgment has come. And I am his judgment. In the richly furnished parlor of Mr. Adams, a man sat sipping wine, unaware that fate was knocking at his door. His world was about to collapse. Mr. Adams, startled, rising. Uncle? Who is your uncle? I don't know you. What business do you have in my house? Speak. Samson stepped forward, the lamp casting shadows that stretched like ghosts of the past. His lips curled into a bitter laugh, the kind a wounded lion makes before it strikes. Samson, slow, deliberate, like fire cracking dry wood. So, Uncle, you still pretend not to know me? After all these years? Let me remind you. He stepped closer, every word dripping with venom and sorrow. Samson. My name
is Samson. Samson Benjamin, the son of your late brother, the child whose father's property you seized with greedy hands, the boy you cast into the streets, hungry, barefoot, begging for crumbs, and you turned away, the child you robbed of his inheritance. I am that child, the responsibility you abandoned. Because of you, my sister Christabel walked into the fire of shame and despair. Because of you, she lies in the cold embrace of death. Because of you, my mother is paralyzed, her tears her only food. For years we slept beneath bridges, like animals, because of your wickedness. And today, uncle, the earth has brought me back to you. I am not just Samson. I am your worst nightmare. I am your karma. Mr. Adams trembled. His lips quivered, his knees bent, his face pale as though he had seen a ghost. But beside him stood his only son, Ben, the son he once called his pride, but who tonight was nothing but shame. Ben lit another cigarette with shaking fingers. His breath reeked of alcohol. His eyes, bloodshot and hollow, betrayed the grip of cocaine. He staggered, his laughter empty, his body swaying like a tree in the storm. Ben, mocking, slurred voice. Father, who is this man? Who is he standing before us? Samson's eyes darted to the boy, pity flickering, then hardened into steel. He turned back to Mr. Adams, his voice thunderous, each syllable striking like a war drum. Samson, commanding, Officers, you know what to do. Pick them both. These men are not the kind society needs. This man destroyed my life, ripped my family apart, killed my sister in spirit and in body. And today the law has caught up with him. The officers stepped forward. Adam's knees buckled. The night was thick with justice, heavy with the sound of chains rattling closer. Samson, final blow, voice like a gavel. Officers, what are you waiting for? Pick them. And so it was written. A man may outrun his enemies, but he cannot outrun the harvest of his own hands. The tree of wickedness may grow tall, but in the end, its fruits will choke the planter. Darkness swallowed the room, but justice had already lit its fire. In Africa, it is said, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. When a man sows wickedness, he may laugh for a season, but harvest day will surely come. And on this night, under the watchful eyes of justice, the harvest of Mr. Adams had arrived. The policemen surged forward, their boots pounding against the tiled floor like war drums. In one swift motion, the cold steel of handcuffs bit into Mr. Adams' trembling wrists. His face drained of color, his body shaking like a leaf in the Harmattan wind. Beside him, Ben, the son he once called his pride, staggered wildly. He tried to fight, but his drunken stupor betrayed him. At the police station, the truth unraveled like an old mat being shaken in the sun. Mr. Adams, broken and cornered, sat hunched over the table. His lips quivered. His voice cracked as the weight of his sins poured out like poison from a jar. Mr. Adams, confessing, yes, it was me. I was the mastermind. I plotted my own brother's death. I wanted his wealth. I wanted everything he had. Forgive me. It was the devil, not me. It was the devil. But Samuel's eyes held no pity. His voice, sharp as a spear, cut through the air. Samuel, cold and firm. No, uncle. A snake will never cease to be a snake. You chose greed. You chose wickedness. You chose this path with your own feet. Now you must pay for the blood you shed, for the lives you destroyed. Justice must speak, not for me, not for my sister, but for every man watching. They will learn from what has happened to you. The gavel of fate struck. Mr. Adams was sentenced to prison, his pride swallowed by iron bars. His son, Ben, chained to the ruin of his father's legacy, faced his own destruction.
and Samson.
Claimed everything that had been stolen, the lands, the property, the inheritance, restored not just by law, but by destiny itself. Justice, though delayed, had not been denied. One evening, seated in his parlor,
Samson
gathered his family. The firelight flickered across the faces of his children. His first daughter, Ada, her features a striking mirror of her late Aunt Christabel, leaned forward, her eyes wide with wonder. Ada, softly, with awe. "Oh, Papa, what a story you have told us." This story has opened my eyes. Truly, wickedness does not pay. And no matter how good a man's intentions may seem, if his actions are wrong, he will surely face the consequences.
Samson
Gaze softened. He looked at his daughter, then at his son, then at his wife, his pillars, his legacy. His voice, heavy with wisdom and scarred by pain, filled the room.
Samson
Final words. Yes, my children, evil does not pay. And karma never forgets your address. Nothing can be hidden under the sun. Whatever a man sows, that he shall reap. Even if his intentions seem good, if his actions are wrong, he must face the repercussions. So I tell you, always choose what is right. Take the right steps at the right time. Do not compromise with wickedness, for every choice bears fruit, whether good or bad. And remember your Aunt Christabel. She did not fall because she wished to. She fell because hardship clouded her sight. But never feel stuck, my children. For when you think you've reached the end, it is not an end, but only a bend in the road. And so the tale was sealed. The past had spoken, justice had triumphed, and a family once broken stood whole again. For in life the river of truth may twist and turn, but it will always find its way back to the ocean of justice. Dear viewers, this story reminds us that even life's darkest moments can give birth to the strongest courage. Never judge anyone by their present struggle. The child overlooked today may be the leader the world follows tomorrow. What are your thoughts on Christabel and Samson's journey? Share them in the comments below. I'd love to read from you. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell, because here we bring you rare African folk tales you won't find anywhere else. If this story inspired you, like and share it with your friends. Welcome to African Folktales by MaC-Anison TV. Here we bring to your screen power-packed, emotional, suspense-filled, intriguing, captivating, mind-blowing, educative, and epic stories every Wednesdays and Saturdays. So turn on your notification bell, like, share, and subscribe, so you never miss a single tale that will touch your heart and blow your mind.